Hi everyone, I'm back. Rima here for those who are new to my videos and channel. Yesterday's video on how to be luckier or how to be as lucky as others got cut a little before I had to finish the sentence, and the sentence was, and I'm going to add a little bit to that before I tell you what the next topic is. So I was talking about doesn't matter where you live or where anybody lives. The place doesn't make anybody luckier. And if you feel that others are luckier because of where they live, it says nothing about the place. It talks about the dissatisfaction that you feel in your life. And you are just placing it, like we call it displacement in psychology as a defense mechanism. You're just placing it on a thing, on just using an excuse to subconsciously tell your mind that I don't want to, or I don't have to deal with my situation or my problems. So that I take the responsibility away from myself and give the control to something outside of me, which stops me from feeling burdened about or feeling responsible about doing anything about my dissatisfaction. If that makes sense to, it might be a little too complicated for some of you, but those of you who understand, this is what it is. And I'm sure all of you can understand that it is really not the place. If it was the place, then just logically think everybody living in that place would be happy. It's as simple as that. So sometimes we just have to add a little bit of thought and logic to the statements that we tell ourselves, because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, but it matters whether that's helping you in your life or becoming a block in your progress. And I quickly want to go through the three different countries that I've lived in and what are the pros and cons of living in those areas. I'll do my best to keep it as short as possible because that's not the purpose of this video. Or even if I'm talking about the video when how you can be luckier and I'm talking about the different places that I've lived in, I do not want to go into the justification of or the details of why every place has its pros and cons. It doesn't matter where you live, because I want you, those who are ready to take that information, I want you to just understand that the place doesn't matter. And those of you who are willing to make changes and understand that information, you will not need this explanation. But yet, to the satisfaction of a few, let's see how quickly I could do it. Concise a manner can I do it? Living in Bombay, in a city like Bombay, the life is very fast. Travel is takes a long time. There's a lot of complications in terms of travel, the lifestyle, nuclear families. We have aides, helpers, but we do not have support of other family members as much as you would have from towns. And then it's very expensive to live in city like Bombay. It's almost as good as New York. There's also, although in one sense you can say there's safety, but there's also, like, I don't think it's a very safe place. When I've come here to the US, I realized that the way girls travel over there, you're being touched, you're being teased everywhere. It's when you grow up, you think that's the way of life, but that's not how it is everywhere. So I think it's a much more peaceful life I feel here in USA, Arizona, where I am. And most of my viewers are from India, so I don't think I need to tell you much about the life in Bombay. I also need to tell you though that once you live in Bombay, you have that, or we rather have that impression that this is the best place to live in. But we need to come out of that place to look at it from an objective perspective and to get a broader view of how life can be different and better in some ways in other areas. When I went to Africa and Tanzania, I was so close to nature because the city that we lived in, Mwanza, it was like a town, almost like a village for someone coming from Bombay. So it's very close to nature. It's very natural in terms of the vegetables, and everything is grown naturally. They're brought to your door right from the fields. People are very natural in their heart. By that I mean they're organic, they're real, they're true. There's not that fakeness to people like you'll find in Bombay. There's a lot of fakeness, and fakeness is a word that I've created. I know you understand what I mean by that. In Mwanza, what else? The life is slow, so you get a lot of time for yourself, for family. It's very expensive to buy your own house. It's almost, if you're not a citizen, if you're not belonging to that country, I think if you're not extremely rich, it's almost impossible to be able to buy your own house. Even if you're having a business, most Indians are having a business there. My husband's family did not, but even with business, when you're earning a lot, I did not see many of them owning a home. So there's property is it's different. The way property works over there, you are constantly under the vigilance of government. There's that constant feeling of not belonging to that country, that you're a foreign national. You have to legally stay. You have to prove your stay. There's a lot of things about proving that you're legally safe living. That there's bribing that happens. So influence. If you have influence, your work gets done much faster. When I was pregnant over there, I had to wait for the doctor to see me for 2.5 to 3 hours. Can you believe it? Like, you're pregnant, you don't want to be sitting at a clinic for that long, but it was so normal. It's the way the sand and the water is over there. It's a very natural way of life for people. Like, 3 hours of wait is normal. So they don't even feel bad about making you wait. Even in restaurants, when you go and order food, you might get the food after 2 hours sometimes, and then they may come up and tell you at that time that they do not have certain some of the menu items that you ordered, and you would have to be very patient and adjust to the people's characters over there. So so there's pros and cons over there. Life is insecure in terms of there's no security when you walk out of the building. Couldn't wear my nose ring. This is not my real diamond ring. I had to remove it, which was given to me by my mother-in-law, because over there somebody can even chop your nose to get a piece of jewelry like that, because there's so much poverty. So you cannot wear rings, jewelry, chains. You cannot even hold your mobile phone once you step out of your building complex. So you've got to even hold your purses and bags like tightly to your body, and cannot girls cannot tread like walk out of their buildings after sunset. That's pretty much like 5:30 or 6 at the max. And so it's a very different lifestyle, but I loved it. I absolutely loved the authenticity of people over there. I loved the simplicity, the nature, the natural beauty, and the lake and all of that. So it suited my personality in some ways, but in terms of security, like, there were mob riots and there were cars burnt right in front of me under our home, and luckily we were saved. My daughter was saved. So all that, and education is not great. You don't have doctor services, like, so you can die, and you can be misdiagnosed just because you do not have the right doctor service, and nobody even feels bad about it over there. Like, you can't even hold anybody liable. So that was the disadvantage of living over there, and maybe mainly for the security reason is what the reason I have for having left Africa. But my soul belongs to that place. I love the safaris, I love the animals there. The wildlife safaris that you see on Discovery, those were 2 hours from where my husband's house, my father-in-law's house, was. So we visited there 4 times, and when I was young, my dad used to show me those documentaries, and I thought I would never be able to see that. I told myself, I want to see this, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to see this in real life. And can you, like, can't imagine that life took me there, and I got to see all of the Serengeti discovery videos that they show you about animal safaris. And then I came to Arizona, USA. And in USA, the culture is very individualistic. And by individualistic, I mean it's very for Indians and for Africans coming from that culture where, we think about each other. We want to do things together. We care so much about even strangers. Like, when you come to USA, you feel you care so much about. When we came here, for example, when we would go grocery shopping, my daughter would go, she was 1.5. She would go and want to touch another child, call them. You talk to strangers. There, you're not allowed to do, like, here, you're not allowed to do that. You can't just go and touch anybody's cart. You cannot touch somebody else's car. Like, you can't even point, just dab it like that. You cannot do that. It's their stuff. It belongs to them, and they're very particular about, those demarcations are very strong. When you open your car door, the door should not touch, even air touch, the neighbor's car. And legal implications are very strong in terms of driving and even working, legally staying here. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of paperwork. Anybody can sue you for anything. So if you're doing a business, you have to be very careful of what you say. I was in a training session recently, and this student was in training with the trainer. I was observing the trainer, and the student said something about her dog, and the trainer said, "Yeah, I don't care about something," and related to the dog. And the student got so hyper. She said, "You don't care about my dog, and are you saying that you don't care about dogs?" So even little things, little expressions can be intentionally or unintentionally be misunderstood. You have to be very cautious about how you speak. It's a very different culture. It's a very isolated life in terms of coming from India. There's nobody on the roads over here. Nobody. Like you feel like there are only ghosts living here. And the lights on the roads are very dim. And everything has to, you've to got to do everything on your own. In India, you might complain that there's a lot of family interference, there's a lot we have to do for our in-laws, but there are Indians living over here who are living with their in-laws and they're doing everything. Or even those who are not living with in-laws, there's a flip side to it, in the sense you are a nuclear family, you have to take care of your children. You have to, in Arizona there's no public transport, so we have to drive our children everywhere to school, pick them up, drop them at their, take them to their classes, get them to do their homework, clean the house. And it's not like what you've heard, you have to clean the house once in 7 days. That's not true. In Arizona, for example, it's very dusty, and my home doesn't have carpets. So at least homes that don't have carpets, you've got to clean them every 3 to 4 days at least, with dust. And so many of us have dust allergies. Us, I mean people living in Arizona. And I have a home where children are constantly coming and going, so I have to do my cleaning every 2 or 3 days at the max, and then mopping, and then you're cooking meals. And just because you're living here doesn't mean that your family or your husband doesn't want the food that is being cooked in India. We don't have 4 meals, of course, that's impossible. You'll forever be in the kitchen, but still, even if you were to cook a breakfast and dinner, 2 fresh meals, there's just so much cooking because Indian cooking is so extensive. And then you're cleaning, and then you are bathing your children, you are putting them to sleep. If your children are ill or if you are ill, you're taking care of yourself plus doing all the work. And you want to keep up with guests and friends as good as families in India, because as good as family life in India, because you miss having family, and it's a very isolated, lonely life. So for at least for your children, you want to be either taking your children out to events or calling guests over and then cooking for them. You cannot, like, we are not a two-income family. I did not have a work permit for the longest time. So on a single income family, for example, you cannot afford to get food from outside. We do not go out to eat in a restaurant more than 2 times in a month. Even 2 times is rare. Sometimes it's 1 time just to save that bill, of what we get for food. So it's not like life is easy, and those who do not want to be convinced will not be convinced, and you don't have to be convinced. But just know that by telling yourself that I'm living a terrible life, and you guys are much luckier to be where you are, it doesn't help you. It doesn't serve your life. Also, the some of the impressions that you have, like we are lucky to have air condition and heaters in USA. Can I tell you that I don't know if we're necessarily lucky, because even when we cannot afford it, for example, we still have to use it because the weathers are so extreme. And the houses are not made as sturdy and concrete as those in India. These are like paper materials, you can just push a wall and break it. So the insulation is not as great in terms of the way, the materials with which the houses are built. So you've got to use the heaters and ACs, and you've got to bear the cost of paying that bill every month. So I don't see it in the, and I understand that when you've not left India, when you've never lived abroad, we can have those impressions. And if this video helps you to clarify some of that, with my intention is to make you feel better. I just wanted you to feel better about where you are, and to stop comparing yourself to any other situation, anybody else's life, any other place. Okay? So please share your views on. I love hearing that. I like to hear your video. I love hearing that, that changed my life, my perspective, my whatever. That's my intention. I want you to be happier, to live a better life. And the next video is, I'm not doing that today, but I want to share the topic with you because it's super interesting. It's on health, and it's about Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the ancient medicine system followed in India, and that deals with 3 elements in the body. That is fire, which is Pith, air, which is Vat, and Kaph, which is grounding, is the grounding, and the creamy element, they say. I would have to water. I think it's water, yes. So how these elements together make a person's body, different combinations, and through Ayurveda they assess the pulse. Through the pulse, they check the pulse, and through the pulse they assess which is the predominant element in this person's personality and nature, and whether all the 3 elements in the body are in balance or not. And any imbalance in these elements in the body causes health, any kind of health problem. What I want to share with you in the next video is imbalances of, what Vat, Pith, and Kapha, which is fire, water, and air. What are those elements? What they mean in short, and I am going to draw it on an astrologic. I am going to draw columns on a chart and associate that with astrological signs and planets, because even astrology will talk about air, fire, earth elements. Earth is Kapha element, and water, which is also Kapha element in Ayurveda. So I'm going to give you the whole perspective of, doesn't matter what you're following, whether you're following astrology, Ayurveda, something else, some other form of knowledge, a school of thought, it'll still comes back to the same thing, like the female and the male energy that I talked about, yin and yang. In astrology, we have female and male planets. So similar to that, and I want to share with you what happened with my Vat imbalance in my body, how that was shown by my body. So what kind of problems I were created in biologically for me, and what has to be done to reduce that Vat imbalance. It's amazing that what I've learned from both of my doctors, Dr. Amit and Dr. Rich. I am very grateful to have these two wonderful Ayurvedic doctors who are more like my friends. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So I'm excited to share that information with you. Of course, not all of it, some of it, and the credit goes to these two doctors. Okay. All right. So look forward to this health video that's coming up. Bye.